specialist area, so to speak, is climate and nature emergencies. Earlier today, in fact, the Church in Wales and its governing body passed a resolution which declared that there is indeed a climate emergency and that this requires an urgent and rapid global response. They've decided they should divest from fossil fuel and plan for net carbon emissions by 2030 if possible. So, what is your response on this area, looking at the big picture, upcoming COP26, but also looking at what can we do within Wales, and particular areas that have been highlighted in questions that we've received beforehand relate to Llwybr Newydd, the Welsh Government's transport strategy, and also the challenges in relation to social housing and making sure that new building is as low carbon as it can be. Right, so what I'm going to do is ask everybody to speak for 2 minutes in this area. If you're watching, please do start putting your questions up on the Q&A, and we'll pick those up once everybody has had a chance to speak. So I'd like to go different order this time. First of all, to you, Mia.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So it's a good area to start in. We would set a aim for Wales to be net zero by 2050. I already mentioned the Clean Air Act that we would introduce in the first 100 days. Illnesses as a relation of pollution are on the rise. It's really important that we tackle those as well as the other things around that. We would introduce an energy efficiency voucher scheme. So this is particularly in regards to housing, to support housing and bring it up to a more environmentally friendly standard. And there is also, we have discussed with our commitment to building more social housing, making sure that it is as energy efficient and as close to low carbon as absolutely possible. We would invest in regards to transport, which was part of your question. We would invest 50 million in a fast charging network across Wales to make using electric vehicles more sustainable in Wales, because in some areas it very much isn't. You could drive from one end to the other, but you wouldn't be able to drive back because your battery would be flat. And as part of our jobs offer, that includes 15,000 green jobs. So that's sort of a good sort of outline of our policies in this area, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay then, and next, Sian, please. How would you respond in relation to the environment?
Oh, thanks for that. Dwi'n meddwl bod angen i'r targed fod yn dipyn mwy uchelgeisiol, ac mae Plaid Cymru yn credu mewn gosod targed i ddadgarbeneiddio erbyn 2035 ac i greu cenhadaeth mwyn gwneud hynny, the Wales 2035 mission to decarbonise and to reach net zero emissions. Da ni hefyd yn credu bod angen edrych yn fanwl ar y sefyllfa ynni a creu cwmni ynni Cymru sydd yn y gwmni bydda yn datblygu anghenion ynni Cymru gyda tharged o gyrraedd 100% o drydan Cymru yn dod o ffynonella adnewyddadwy erbyn 2035. Mae angen deddf natur efo targedau penodol mwyn adfer bioemrywiaeth yn ein gwlad ni. Ac o ran yr ochr tai, dwi'n meddwl bod na, wrth i ni ddod drwy'r cyfnod adfer Covid, gyfle gwirioneddol yn fan hyn i nid yn unig i ddatblygu tai y dyfodol sydd yn llawer mwy gwyrdd ac i retrofitio yr stoc tai presennol gan greu miloedd o swyddi hefyd ar yr un pryd, sef agwedd sydd yn bwysig iawn wrth i ni adfer o'r cyfnod y Covid yma felly. Mae gennym ni lot fwy o bolisïau, falle bydd yna gyfle i drafod rheini hefyd.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Well, I mean, this is the fundamental question of stewardship of our age, really, isn't it? It's an economic challenge, an environmental challenge, but it's also, frankly, a moral challenge. And it's not the next crisis that we face, it's the crisis that we are living through now. So from our point of view as a party, what we want to do is integrate, action for nature into economic activity at large, into sheep farming on the one hand, to steel production on the other. And our manifesto sets out a very ambitious plan for that. We've already spent over £1 billion since 20,000 on improving waste collection and waste reduction, and recycling figures have reflected that. We've banned fracking. We've made sure that Wales is free from GMOs. We've introduced strict regulations to reduce agricultural pollution, which both Plaid Cymru and the Conservatives voted against, which is a reminder that actions obviously speak louder than words. And we've invested significantly in the marine biodiversity space as well. Our manifesto commitment involves abolishing single-use plastics, creating a national forest for Wales, a new national park, a moratorium on all large incinerators, legislation to deal with the consequences of the environmental climate emergency. So coal tip safety is an example of that. We'll want to develop reuse and repair hubs in town centres right across Wales to boost our circular economy. We'll bring in a Clean Air Act, and we'll fund additional flood protection for more than 45,000 homes. We'll continue with our low carbon housing construction programme by adding another 20,000 homes in the new Senedd, and a significant expansion of our retrofit programme to go with that. We are clear that the net zero commitment of 2050 is an ambitious target, and whilst I hear other parties saying we should be more ambitious, I would just say that the Committee for Climate Change itself thought that net zero by 2050 was more ambitious than could be managed. So it's important to be evidence-based as well as, describing an ambition. It needs to be capable of being accomplished, and we are committed as a party to doing that.
Right, thank you all. Now, this is the point at which we discover how agile our various candidates are. We have a number of questions popping up on the chat. One specifically for Mia, but I think about Wales and rail and the Heart of Wales upgrade possibility. A question for all the parties on nuclear energy. Another question which is about the well-being, Wales's commitment to the well-being of future generations and being a globally responsible nation, and how that relates to imported commodities, although of course I think trade policy is not devolved to that extent. Ancient forests, another question area, and issues and solutions of the nature emergency and loss of biodiversity. There's a lot in there, but pick up what works for you, and if you want to talk about other people's policies and how yours compare, go for it. So Mia, another minute or so.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on an iPad, so I'm just trying to, I've got to open a separate window in order to see the questions, unfortunately. Oh gosh, some of them are quite long. There's absolutely a role for electric vehicles in public transport to respond to that, and that's something that we have absolutely committed to, particularly in regards to bus transport. There's actually, and to give Cardiff Council, which is a Labour council, full credit, they have supported Cardiff Bus in this area in introducing electric buses, moving towards that, and I think that's something that should be commended, and I think we should see more of that across the whole of Wales. I personally, and neither.
Nuclear energy, what's your view on that?
My role is if nuclear energy is brought safely and sustainably to Wales to bring more jobs to communities where they're needed, and I think it's absolutely should go ahead. Nuclear energy can be clean, efficient, and make a positive difference in our country, and I think we need to make sure we're moving away from fossil fuels. Should be our priority, rather than condemning nuclear energy and the opportunity for jobs for Welsh people.
Okay, I think I'm going to move to Sian next. If you'd like to pick up, are you able to read the questions as they come up?
I'm not really. Not.
Okay, well, see what you make of nuclear energy, cross Wales railway line. Should we have the Heart of Wales upgrade? What have we got? Protection of ancient forests. How do we promote Wales's sort of constructive role internationally, our overseas deforestation footprint, etc. There's a lot in there, just pile in. And
there's a lot in there, yes.
Yes.
Where we've got ambitious plans for improving the railway infrastructure in Wales, and one of the plans that we have is to create a railway down the western side of the country. Obviously, transport and tackling climate change through changing the way that we that transport modes are used in this country is crucial. On nuclear energy, I don't think it's part of the future mix that we want in Wales, and it's becoming more and more old-fashioned and becoming very pricey as well, and I think there are plenty of other, there's scope for plenty of other modes of energy, and that's why we need an energy company to bring all these different aspects together, and to map out exactly what we need in an energy atlas, and to be promoting new forms of energy. The Nature Act, I think, is something that really shows our commitment to closing, you know, to start to deal with the problems of lost habitats and biodiversity, and so that also is an essential part of our ambitions in this area.
Right, Jeremy, what about you? Oh, you're muted. It was bound to happen sooner or later in the Zoom, I would have to say. You're muted.
First one to go. Yeah, sorry about that. You'd think by now that we'd got it down pat, but sorry. I think I heard three kind of major themes. One was around transport, one was around nuclear, one was around biodiversity loss. So just on each of those, I mean, what we want to do is, you know, to continue to build, frankly, on the foundations that I think we've very well established in the last Senedd term, which is around a massive expansion of support for active travel and increasing support for public transport. Obviously, we've brought the Wales franchise back into public ownership, and clearly significant investment in bus services around demand responsive travel and environmentally friendly public transport in particular, and making sure and actually seeing this as a whole is really important. So, you know, setting the target for 30% of employment to be remote from the workplace, I think, you know, that's all part of the larger picture really of how you practically deliver some of these things on the ground, but certainly kind of clearly continuing to upgrade the bus the rail network is obviously fundamental to our ambitions. On the question of nuclear, I mean, clearly the easy answer to the question is no, let's not have any nuclear. You know, that's there are very few criticisms given for answering in that way, but it is a more complex picture than that, and I think many of us who have a kind of long-term antipathy to nuclear in general, you know, wrestle with bluntly the significant contribution it can make to ensuring a decarbonised energy supply. I don't think there's any question about that. Plainly, it can make a significant contribution to that, and it seems to me that fundamental challenge is to decarbonise our energy supply.